ESPN.com, NFL Insider KC Joyner. This one might have a little different feel because the 11-2 Eagles will have a new look at quarterback. A couple of weeks ago, it was the 2-11 Giants that had a different look at quarterback, but this time it's the 11-2 Eagles with a different look. We talked about it on Monday, and how does Foles, to you, change the Eagles' offense moving forward here?
I think, well, first off, the good thing for the Eagles is that they have the ability to lean on the running game. I have a metric called good blocking rate, measures how often an offense gives its ball carries quality. Run blocking, excuse me, it's really important because good blocking carries are 4 to 5 times more productive than bad blocking carries. So you have to get good blocking to get good running ability. The last 6 weeks, Philadelphia ranks 4th in the league in good blocking rate, and they've rated pretty well up near that ranking over the whole season. The Giants' run defense ranks in the bottom half of the league in all my advanced run metrics. So I think they're going to be able to lean on the run pretty heavily in this game. I don't know if they'll necessarily do that in every single contest, but I wouldn't be surprised in this contest if it's Ajayi, if it's Blunt, if it's Clement, and they just keep giving those guys the ball and just ask Foles to be a vertical pass counterpuncher, which would be a perfect role for him.
Yeah, with where the Eagles are right now, let me ask specifically about that left side of the offensive line in the run game. It seems like they've struggled over there. Wisniewski with the bad ankle, not sure if he'll be able to go. He's been kind of in and out at practice. Obviously, Vaitai has struggled the last couple of weeks. So in this game against the Giants, who have been terrible defensively here, is that any concern at all, the Eagles' offensive line against the Giants' defensive front?
I look at the type of run plays they like to do, and they've got a Ajayi in there that like to do the quick hitter plays. When you get quick hitter plays, all you need is just to get their alignment occupied for half a second, maybe a second, and just that's it. So I look at that and say that's not going to really probably impact the left side because you run traps up the middle anyway. So that'd be a lot of what he does. With Blunt, it's power running, and it's just a man-on-man blocking, and usually just going to a particular gap. And a lot of times teams are right-handed on their gaps, so they're going to do counter plays. You're going to go to the right. It's just what teams normally do, so that would keep them away from there too. And Clement is the pass catching back, so look at that and go, in the running game it's not as much of a concern. Plus you can do a lot of zone blocking in the running game too, and if you're doing zone blocking, it's not just a one-on-one thing. You almost had to beat 2 guys to defeat zone blocking in order to make some kind of an impact. So it's a concern, but they've had such good run blocking all year long anyway, regardless of who's been in there. I just think it's part of their psyche now.
KC Joyner, when Nick Foles goes back to pass, what is he looking at with this Giants secondary? Should there be yards to be had in the pass game this week?
I've mentioned before that when it comes to safeties, I measure them on a red, yellow, and green basis. That's the grade they get them. Red is guys you want to avoid. You don't want to go in that direction if you can avoid it. Yellow is okay. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's just a middle of the road matchup, and a green rated matchup is okay. These are guys you want to target. I have both their safeties rated as green rated safeties. You could just go vertical as much as they could go out to their tight ends as much as they wanted to because Collins has struggled. They've been horrible against tight ends this year. They get a lot of touchdown in all but one game to tight ends this year. Their free safety hasn't been any better. I even have one of their cornerbacks rated as green rated cornerback. So I think from a matchup perspective, Philadelphia can just have the pick of what they want to do, because the Giants just don't have the talent back there.
KC Joyner's with us. Eagles, Giants, countdown to kickoff starts at 10 this Sunday. Let's flip the script and look at the Giants' offense. They don't run the ball very well at all. Obviously, their pass weapons are all on the injured reserve list. So where's an area on the Giants' offense this week? If that Eagles defense has struggled the last 2 weeks, they've not been as consistent the last 2 weeks in their tackling. They've given up a lot of yards and points the last couple of weeks. So anything concern you when you look at the Giants' offense this week against that Eagle defense?
The Eagles, all year long, have ranked badly in good blocking yards per attempt. If you get a good blocking against them, over the last 6 weeks, they've allowed 9 yards per attempt on plays where you get good blocking against them. That's 26th in the league, and they've been around that level all season long. I don't know if the Giants have playmakers in their backfield who can take full advantage of that, but if I'm the Giants, I'm looking at that going, okay, I know I might, because the reason it happened, we've discussed this before, to the reason it does that for Philly, because Philly is first in good blocking rate allowed over the past 6 weeks, so you don't get many good blocking opportunities because they're so aggressive and so ambitious. They get upfield so quickly that's how they're making their plays, but if you can get past that for a play, if they're getting upfield to get upfield to get your blocker or to get your running backs, if you can get past it, you can get a big gain. So I think that's what the Giants are going to want to try and do on the ground. They're going to try and say, can we get a couple of big plays on the ground? In the passing game, it's kind of Ingram and Shepard, and that's about it. And I don't know that they can get to Shepard. So if I'm them, I'm hoping I get some plays to Ingram. But I'm looking at this offense going, there's just not that many playmakers on the offense for Philadelphia to really worry about.
If you're looking at an upset situation here, what happens? Where does that happen? If you say the Giants we talk Monday, you're on at 5, and we say, Casey, what happened? How did that scenario play out for you?
I would think that it would play out that the Eagles did something. I would think that they made an early turnover. The Giants got some kind of a lead, and then the Philly got into a situation where they had to start to throw the ball more often than they wanted to, and they got into a we-have-to-pass situation, because if that happens, the Giants, they're not a great pass rushing team in any respect. In fact, they're a terrible pass rushing team in most respects. But I think if you had a situation where Foles had to pass and he started forcing passes into the coverage, that'd be about the only thing. If Foles self-destructs, that's how they lose the game. If he doesn't self-destruct, I don't see it happening.
Foles hasn't really been a full-time starting quarterback for a couple of years, but when he was in Philly, he had that 14-4 run. He had the 27-2. It's hard to say because we haven't seen him. He did have a game last year in Kansas City, which he played really well in, by the way. 3 touchdowns, no picks in a game that the Chiefs won. But would you think that Foles will be a more polished, better quarterback than the guy he was in 2013, right? Even though he hasn't played. And remember, he didn't play in the preseason at all either. He had that elbow problem. So a lot of people are wondering if he's, if that arm's okay and fully healthy, even though he hasn't really done anything all year.
And one thing that might be, again, I don't say it'll lend itself to an upset, but one thing the Eagles might be tempted to do is to have him throw the ball a lot, because the Giants over the past 6 weeks, they rank last in the league in average time in pocket for quarterbacks. They're getting no pass rush whatsoever. They're like 28th in pass pressure rate. So I think the Eagles could look at the situation and say, like you were saying, hey, we haven't seen much of him. He hasn't been on the field that much. We really would like to get him some active playing time. Let's have him throw the ball here. They could do this. I don't think they will, but they could just say, let's have him throw the ball more often here, because we're not going to get a more favorable matchup. He's not going to get better test under fire than he is in this matchup. But if you do that, that might lead to the old adage that you can put the ball in the air and 3 things can happen and 2 are bad. I think that that could be the way they think about it. But if they want to give him some playing time, this is the matchup to do with him.
Yeah, he's got 3 matchups here down the stretch to kind of get ready, and all 3, well, really 2 of the 3 are kind of out of the playoff mix, and then Dallas, we'll see what happens with them on that final game. You got a lot of interesting matchups, Casey. Let's get into them this weekend, because a lot of them with playoff implications. As we take a look at Week 15, it starts tomorrow with Bears and Lions. And look, if the Lions win out, I guess some tiebreakers and stuff, they have some say here. So Chicago looked pretty good last week. They beat up on Cincinnati, but can they win 2 weeks in a row, really?
I don't think so. Trubisky's starting to play like they expected him to play. I was one of the few on the Trubisky bandwagon before the season, just because when you look at his small sample size tape of college, he was that good at mobility and accuracy, and you're starting to see some of that now. But I just think that the Lions have a shutdown cornerback. I think the Bears are pretty limited on offense. They have maybe one receiving threat, and it's Inman, and he's not that good either. So I just think I think Detroit can score at a pace that Chicago can't keep up with.
All right, Casey, big one in the AFC West, the Chargers. A lot of people jumping on that Charger wagon. The Chiefs, a lot of people jumped off the Chief wagon, but they answered the bell last week. Can they slow down this Charger team that's been playing very well at Arrowhead in Kansas City?
Their big issue is going to be, can they stop the Chargers' pass rush? Because the Chargers' pass rush, they've got some really good pass rushers. Their pass pressure rate has been very solid most of the season, but of late they haven't done quite as well. So the Chargers' pass rush plays to where it's capable of, then I think that they're going to win that game. But if they play the way they've been playing of late, I think Kansas City wins. And since it's at home, I think I'm going to lean towards Kansas City.
All right. Buffalo in the playoffs, if they were to start today, something they haven't been able to do since the 90s here. They're playing a Miami team coming off a big win, but can Miami really go on the road and win in Buffalo?
I don't think so. In Miami, remember, Miami's New England's kryptonite when they go to Miami. Tom Brady is 8-9 in his games at Miami, and he's 82-18 in all other games. It's a close record to that. I mean, that's the only place that he loses on the road. Miami does not travel well to the north. That's not what they do. Buffalo runs the ball well. Miami can't stop the run. You look at some other matchups, and it's not a favorable matchup for them. So, and then plus Taylor's playing too. That's a big plus. If Peterman was in there, I'd probably think Buffalo might lose. But with Taylor in there, and it looks like he's going to be a full go, I think they win that one.
All right, Cleveland hasn't won yet. Baltimore stole their team. Are they going to give them a win?
Boy, man, Cleveland's been playing a lot better. Yeah, they really have. It's odd to say. You think the Browns could actually win a game, but the way Baltimore's playing, Baltimore, man, they're going to be, after what happened last week, there's no way they should have lost that game. They did, and but psychologically, I don't think Harbaugh lets that get to them. So I think they deliver no loss.
That's a big game for them. They're out right now. They need to get a win to get back in there, and Cleveland's just what the doctor ordered. Minnesota, Cincinnati. Cincinnati looked terrible last week. Minnesota needs to keep this pace with Philly. If they lose this game and Philly wins, Philly's going to get home field advantage. So this is a big one for Minnesota, but at home. You see any way they slip up to the Bengals? Are the Bengals going to try to, play for Marvin here and pick up a big win with him probably on the way out?
I think they could. Minnesota's got a lot of problems right now. Minnesota is 24th in good blocking rate over the past 6 weeks. On defense, they're last in the league in good blocking rate allowed over the past 6 weeks. Dead last. Nobody thinks their defense is playing that bad. They're not pass rushing that well either. They've got really good coverage guys, but their front seven's not holding up. And Cincinnati is ranked 6th in the league in good blocking rate over the past 6 weeks. I still think Minnesota wins, but I think Cincinnati's going to give them all they can ask for.
Talking football, ESPN.com, NFL Insider KC Joyner here, breaking down the Week 15 matchups, a lot of them with playoff implications. This one here, New York going to the Saints. The Jets have been a nice little story, but they're still dead last in the AFC East, which is not a very good division. The other good story has been New Orleans and their defense. This is a game they have to win, though. I mean, it's nice to be a great story, but in December when you have to win games, this is the kind of game New Orleans has to win.
Yeah, New Orleans is, over the past 6 weeks, they're averaging 11.6 yards per rush when they get good blocking. That's an insanely good number. Kamara's going to be back probably this week, so with him and Ingram, and the Jets' defensive front seven has been really good, so I think Brees is probably going to have to, they've been good against the run, and so Brees is probably going to have to throw the ball more than usual, but he's got Thomas, and he's got other targets in the passing game. They still have Willie Snead, who really haven't used, and if he's healthy, he's a really good player, so I just think they have too much firepower for the Jets.
One of the few games this weekend, if maybe the only game that has no playoff implications really, is Arizona and Washington. And the one question really is interesting is Arizona kind of looking at Gabbard. Has he impressed you at all to make you feel like that, he was once a high first round pick, that he could play in this league?
I never had him as a high first-round pick coming out of Missouri because when you looked at his tape, there it was a lot of the bubble screens, a lot of that type of plays. And when he dropped back, if he got any kind of pass rush pressure, you could see it rattled him. And it's like you can't do that in the NFL. He's gotten over a lot of that. I think you could still rattle him, but he's not as rattleable as he was in college. So I think they're going to want to see that with him. But they just lost. Peterson's been put on IR, so they're going to have Kerwin Williams to lean on, and Washington's not stopping the run very well. So I bet Kerwin Williams gets 20 carries and Arizona wins that.
I like Arizona too. All right, Green Bay is going to get Aaron Rodgers back, but they got to go to Carolina. Even if Green Bay wins out, they're still got some tiebreaker issues there. So Rodgers might be back. He might be an interesting story, but do they even get the first win in Carolina? It seems like everybody's overlooking the Panthers here.
Yeah, like the Panthers are their defensive front seven ranked out first at my midway point of the season rankings, and they're still almost probably going to be near that level under the season-ending rankings. So it's not, and Green Bay does not pass block very well, but Rodgers is one of those quarterbacks that you don't have to give him great pass blocking to be able to, for him to do what he does. I think he's going to want to come back and hit a bunch of passes to Nelson, because Nelson he's done nothing in their passing game since Rodgers left. So I just have a feeling that Rodgers is going to want to show the world, and I'm motivated Aaron Rodgers, even if it's on the road in a tough matchup. I think they're going to win that one, and I think they run the table. I think they do make the playoffs.
All right, very interesting. KC Joyner, ESPN.com. NFL Insider looking at this week's 15 matchups. Jacksonville, really a big win last week at home against Seattle. That kind of says to people, hey, a good team could come into our house, and we did take care of business. They'll play a Houston team that's had all sorts of injuries here, so Jacksonville can get that leg up in the AFC South.
I do an article for ESPN's Insider section grading blocking matchups. Do it from a fantasy perspective, but you can look at it from a standard football perspective as well. When I did the run blocking matchups for Houston versus Jacksonville, Houston's run blocking has been terrible. Near the bottom of the league, they're 30th in good blocking rate over the past 6 weeks, and Jacksonville's rush defense is they struggled earlier in the year, and then they made some acquisitions and moved some people around, and they've just been dominant of late. So I don't think Lamar Miller is going to be able to do a thing on the ground, so they're going to have to lean on Savage. Savage throwing against that secondary, that's a scary prospect. So I think Jacksonville wins this one comfortably.
All right, let's take a look at, we talked about games that have playoff implications. This one has division championship implications because Seattle's already beaten the Rams once. If they could beat them again, they would tie, and then if they win out, they would win that division there. So can the Rams, who lost at home to Seattle, go to Seattle and even this series up and essentially put themselves ahead of Seattle by 2 games now. Rams coming off a loss last week, Seattle coming off a loss last week, so something's got to give this week.
Yeah, Rams get Robert Woods back this week. That's going to be a big help to their offense. Their passing game's been really good anyway, but it's going to be a big plus for them. Their run blocking's been better. Their run defense has been better. Seattle's run blocking is 31st in good blocking rate over the past 6 weweeks. Their front seven's not as good as it has been in the past. They've lost people in the Legion of Boom, but Russell Wilson is so good that he can almost carry the team. I think the Rams are going to go up there and keep Wilson is somewhat in check. He's playing so well that he just needs a quarter of a game to put up dominant numbers. I think they're going to do it, but won't surprise me when all Seattle wins. I'm going to pick the Rams on this one.
That's a key game this week in the NFC West. A key game in the AFC for home field advantage. New England and Pittsburgh, and you can essentially say the winner of this game gets home field. That means the winner of this game goes to the Super Bowl, right? If you get home field advantage, you're the favorite for the Super Bowl. So Pittsburgh, although I was surprised to see Pittsburgh's a home underdog in this one, even with New England coming off the loss. So let's break this one down a little bit more. New England going to Pittsburgh here to give us your initial thoughts on this matchup, which is essentially for home field.
Pittsburgh won't Tomlin in this game. They won't do Tomlining. We talked about most weeks. So they play down to their competition level. But the problem with Pittsburgh is when they lost Shazier, he was the defensive play caller. He's their plugger inside linebacker, and he's also the defensive play caller, though. So their run defense, they'd had a 35.6 good blocking rate allowed this season before he left. That was 6th best in the league. And since he left over the past 2 games, they've been over 60% allowed in good blocking rate. They had a 70.6% good blocking rate allowed this past week because they lost Shazier out in the Matakevich to back up to him, where he was out too, so they're on the 3rd-string linebacker. I don't know if Matakevich is going to be back this week or not. If he is, and they're going to have a week to figure it out, but man, I don't like the idea of a defense going up against New England where you're missing your play call and you're going up against Brady and Belichick and McDaniels and you're going up against all that brain trust there and you've got somebody out in the field who can't call adjustments like that. And plus, they've been out of position a lot anyway. I just think Pittsburgh's going to make too many mistakes, going to lose this one. Maybe they win the rematch, but I think they're going to lose this one.
Interesting. Pittsburgh has played really well on both sides of the ball. I mean, everybody thinks Pittsburgh, they think those bees on the offensive side of the ball, but their defense has been great this year. I don't know. This might be the year that they finally get the better of New England, which, this isn't a typical New England team. Even though they're kind of running away in the AFC, it doesn't feel like this New England team is an invincible type of team like some of their other regular season teams have felt. Even though some of those teams haven't won or got knocked out and disappointed, this team doesn't feel like it's as good as some of those New England teams, does it?
No, it doesn't. And usually they go up to Pittsburgh and they can win a shootout game. And I'm looking at this game going, New England, I don't want to try and play a shootout game. I want to try and play a more percentage game. I want to try and slow things down a little bit. I want to hand the ball off and test that run defense a lot. And I'm glad to take 12-play drives because we saw what happened in Pittsburgh this past week. Yeah, they ended up getting, against Baltimore, really good defense. I mean, Baltimore's been an opportunistic, strong defense in a lot of ways, and Ben puts up 500 yards against. Antonio Brown, I just did an article for ESPN's Insider Section of the Post today. Antonio Brown, we was talking about non-quarterback MVP candidates, and I had Brown and Bell as 2 guys who were on that list. Antonio Brown could actually top 2,000 yards receiving this year. If he gets like 500 yards in these last 3 games, which if you look at what he's done the last 4 games, he could do it. So you got him doing that. You got 1,600 yards so far out of Bell. He could get 2,000 yard season. I mean, you've got all these great weapons. I think New England wants to keep from getting in a shootout, but I don't think Pittsburgh wants to get in a shootout either because of the way the defense is played.
All right, a couple more with KC Joyner here. Tennessee needs this one. San Francisco's been winning with Garoppolo here. I was very disappointed in Tennessee could go to Arizona last week. That tells me about all you need to know about them. They might have 8 wins in the win column there, but they're not an 8-win team.
Mariota is not playing as well as he's capable. They're blocking, too, by the way. Over the beginning of the season, you go back to that Week 8 measurement I did, halfway point of the season, Tennessee's got a top 5 offensive line. Last 4 weeks, or last 6 weeks, they ranked 22nd in good blocking rate. They're still doing well in good blocking yards per attempt, so they're getting big holes when they get them, but they're not doing well in good blocking rate. They're not blocking well in the passing game either. So when you start adding those elements together and saying, because that's what they are, they're like the Cowboys were last year, or the Cowboys are this year. Their offensive line pretty much carries their whole team, and it's not playing to its talent level. So I think the San Francisco can pull off the upset this week.
All right, Dallas is going to Oakland. Dallas still has some slim playoff hopes here. If they can win out, that game against the Eagles on the final weekend of the year might be a little bit more interesting. So Sunday night, Oakland looks terrible. I mean, they look like they've given up on defense. So can Dallas win another game without Zeke and make his return a la Aaron Rodgers. Very interesting when he gets back.
They now have a two-headed approach in their backfield because Smith had 115 receiving yards last week and scored a couple touchdowns, and Morris was their lead ball carrier, like 19 carries. So they have two guys now they can lean on in their ground game. So their run blocking has been very good of late. They're back to their eighth in good blocking rate over the past 6 weeks, and they had struggled there for a couple weeks. And when Zeke went out, I think teams just decided we're going to stop the running now. Dallas has figured out how to counter some of that. So that's a good plus for them. And you're right, Oakland's defense. Hey, they're playing better than they were, but that just means you went from atrocious to abysmal. I mean, I think Dallas wins it handily.
Okay, Monday night, Atlanta takes on Tampa, and Atlanta, they kind of control their own destiny. They play all AFC South teams, NFC South teams. If they can win out here, they lock themselves in easily here. They'll play Tampa Monday night, who's been pretty disappointing.
Tampa has been there. I memean, some of it's been the injury to Winston, and that's he's out for a few weeks. But you got Fitzpatrick, who should be able to do well enough for you, and he doesn't. So you've got a lot of these issues with them that they don't cover well. They're not run blocking well. Martin's has been banged up, but he's not played well when he's been out there. He's got a low good blocking yards per attempt. You can just basically pick across the board and say this team is just not playing to its level. That's why I think Cutter probably won't be there after the season. So I think if Atlanta doesn't go down there and win handily, they deserve to miss the playoffs, but I think they will go down there and win.
All right, KC Joyner here, ESPN.com, of course, on a Friday. He'll be back on Monday at 5 to break down all of the Week 15 matchups, including Eagles-Giants. And KC, your pick for Eagles-Giants, it sounds like you're heavily leaning towards the Eagles.
The people will think it's the curse of the Eagles if they lose this game, but I think they're going to win. If they don't win this game by 2 touchdowns, it'd be surprising. The Giants just have no firepower. All
right, KC Joyner back on Monday here on the Sports Bash Live. Of course, you can hear KC on Mondays and Fridays with the breakdown of the matchups to watch here on the Sports Bash, and we'll be getting into Week 16. Oh, my gosh, it's getting crazy that we're getting to the end of the football season, but should be really entertaining playoffs, and we'll look at those playoff possibilities again next week right here on the Sports Bash. Thanks, pal.
Appreciate it.